Michigan's Republican gubernatorial candidate Tudor Dixon wants to ban more and more types of books, it seems. Audio just came out where Dixon suggests that even books about divorce shouldn't be on school library shelves. Progressive PAC American Bridge 21st Century released the October 2020 soundbite from when Dixon was an anchor on far-right streaming network Real America's Voice. Take a listen to the horror that her daughter had to endure.
When my daughter was in first grade, she got a book out of the school library, and it was a book on divorce. And it was something about having two different homes. And by the end of the book, the little girl had been told that, you get to have Christmas at both houses. But my little girl picked that book out of the library, and her parents were not getting divorced. And my husband and I were trying to figure out how to get her to stop worrying about something that wasn't going to happen. And I remember he and I both going, why was this something that she was just able to pick up off the shelf? Because it caused an unnecessary anxiety in her life, thinking, am I going to end up having to go between two homes? So it's just a perfect example of we need parents involved, and there are resources that are helpful for a child that's going through it. And if they're not going through it, it could cause anxiety.
Oh no, it could cause anxiety. God forbid should a child be exposed to thoughts that aren't carefully crafted in the home of her still married Christian parents. I mean, that book wasn't even good enough for her. Literally, the book says you get to have two Christmases. This book is set in a Christian family's home that happens to get divorced, and it's too much for the fragile ears of this young lady. And let's pull the books off the shelves. She's made so-called parental rights a cornerstone of her campaign for governor against Democrat incumbent Gretchen Whitmer. And in this week's second and final Michigan gubernatorial debate, the Trump-endorsed candidate railed against supposed pornographic books in school libraries and has said she would support a statewide ban on pornographic books in schools. Republicans nationwide have been characterizing books that just deal with LGBTQ themes as pornographic and inappropriate in attempts to ban such books from both public libraries and schools. Do you really think books are more dangerous than guns? Do you really think that books pose a greater danger to our kids than gun violence does? Governor Whitmer asked Dixon, who opposes red flag laws and supports allowing Michiganders to carry concealed weapons without a permit.
Yeah, it's amazing. School shootings and the guns that allow them to happen are not that big a deal. They're not a danger to your kids. Remember, guys, there's almost no school shootings outside of America. The rest of the world thinks we're lunatics. They're like, you let your kids get massacred over and over and over again? It's obviously because of the guns. Other countries don't have this problem because they don't allow guns at anywhere near the rate that we do, right? So they prevent people getting assault rifles like AR-15s and AK-47s, and they don't have mass shootings like we do, right? We allow it, and that is an actual threat to our kids. And Uvalde, you read the story of how the AR-15 ripped through the kids. Some of them were unrecognizable because it literally blew their heads off. And she thinks that's not a danger. That's not a danger. But a book about divorce, oh my God, no, ban it, ban it. Now let's note the unbelievable hypocrisies here. Number one, she's triggered by a book about divorce. And if she's triggered, nope, what do her kids need? A safe space. Okay, and why is she banning books? Because of freedom. These are obvious, glaring hypocrisies. Yet every right-winger's like, that's right, we gotta ban the books because of freedom, okay? And there's safe spaces, you don't need them, but we do. Yeah, libs getting triggered, I'm triggered. It's a divorce, gay people, right? So, and look at them, right? There's like, oh, divorce is bad, so you shouldn't have books about that. Gay people are bad, so you shouldn't have books about gay people. No, they're not bad. They're not bad. You're an evil, immoral person who goes, oh, God created you that way? We should hate you because of how God created you. What are you saying? Like, what, God doesn't know what he's doing? You think they're lying? They're actually straight, but they're like, hey, you know what? I'll pretend to be gay because it's so fun. I have all these right-wingers who hate me so much, they want to ban books about my existence. Is that fun? They passed over 600 bills against the LGBTQ community since 2018. These monsters that are the Republicans party today. I mean, this thing's funny. Like she's trying to ban a book about divorce, right? Because the kids, you can shelter them all the way till they're 18. Books about sharks? No, we got to get them out of here. What if my kid finds out there's sharks? The giraffes looking up at them could give you a neck crank. Got to ban those. Okay, donkeys, they have the kicks. We got to ban those. The spiders, what if they find, oh my God, there's a spider right there. Oh my God, ban the spiders. Ban the spiders. Hashtag freedom.
Yep. They call liberals snowflakes because we get upset about things that actually matter, that can affect people's lives, and we say that's not okay to do. Oh, you're a snowflake. But they aren't snowflakes when they get their panties in a bunch over things that literally don't matter, and it's just because they don't want their tender ears to hear it. Jackson, what do you think about this?
Well, I think that this story, interestingly, just reflects back to the fact that the entire modern conservative movement is simply a counterculture movement to women's liberation, because everything jumps back to birth control and divorce rates. Which really is just the feelings, as you pointed out, of single lonely men who don't feel sexually validated. Because everything always goes back to, women somehow having access to money and freedom, and because they have birth control, they can sleep with whoever they want. And now, again, this stuff really goes deep into things like the manosphere, the red pill communities. But everything that conservatives say on Fox News goes back to the fact that conservatives in this country believe that freedoms take away from order in society. There was a mythical time when women couldn't divorce men and, colored people couldn't drink at certain water fountains. Everything was in order because, certain people were at the helm of society unchallenged. That's all this is. And this story beautifully highlights that. And conservatives think everything's so simple. And us liberals, the reason that we approach things with a more, complicated and complex approach is because we're the dumb ones, we're the crazy ones. That's why their solutions are so simple. We'll just take away Roe. Why? Because they think it will introduce order back into society. It's really interesting. Everything always somehow goes back to women having access to birth control, money, and the divorce rates every time.
Yeah, so that's such a great point by Jackson. So I just want to break it down as quickly as I can. So conservatives in this country, and by the way, in any country, are always for what? Well, they're conservative because they're against change. They want to protect the established order and things that are traditional. And that's why a lot of times it goes back to religion, because religion is more traditional. So what did they do in this country? Well, they attacked the others in some ways that worked for a very long time, in some ways that stopped working. And that's why this divorce story is interesting. Because one of the things that has worked throughout time is, hey guys, don't look up because the people creating all your problems are not above you. No, it's people at your level or below, right? Oh, you got black people, they're the real problem. And I mean, they would say that during slavery, right? They were slaves, they had no power at all. And the slave master who had all the money and power would tell poor white people, oh no, we're not your problem. Black people are your problem. They're the ones with all the power. I mean, you'd have to be a lunatic to believe that, but brainwashing works. And that worked back then, it worked during Jim Crow, and it's still working today. Oh, the guy who crossed the border without a dollar in his pocket, he's the one that rigged the rules. He just got here and he doesn't have any money, right? What power could he possibly have? But they're like, oh, he's brown, right? And so that always works, unfortunately. But they used to have others, right? They'd be like, oh, the divorce is terrible. Religion tells us divorce is terrible. To ostracize the divorce. Until everybody got divorced. They're like, it's not working anymore. So they're like, backpedal. Okay, divorce is fine. We're not talking about divorce anymore, okay? And for a while, they were like, oh, gay people, they suck. Oh, and that worked really well. All the way to 2004, they're running ballot initiatives, and that's why George Bush beat John Kerry, because of those ballot initiatives against gay marriage. But that's not working. So then they went to trans people, right? But now they're going the other direction. They're like more racist, more against Latinos, more against everybody else. They're like, okay, you know what? I think we still can hit gays. And so now they're like, oh yeah, ban every book that ever mentions a gay, right? Gay person in America. And now they're back to divorce.
And their big wedge issue before abortion was segregation. That's how they got people fired up on this horrible side.
And last thing, guys, super quick, is that why go back to divorce? Because it's about what Jackson said. The racism is to control the others in terms of minorities, and divorce is to control women. You're not allowed to get divorced, you're not allowed to get an abortion, you're back to being our chattel and you work for men from now on. That's the right-wing position. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, I really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.